So, we really screwed this one up, didn't we? Every time I take a look at an episode and come back to write a script, I'm genuinely like, damn, how did this even happen? But yeah, here we are. Welcome back to Fire Emblem Monopoly. Week 8 is here, and it's definitely a week of mourning, alright. We kicked things off with a pretty easy map. I've never really had trouble with this one in any of my personal playthroughs of Sacred Stones. It's pretty straightforward and there aren't a lot of enemies on the map. You basically run around making Gorgon omelets and then beat up the handful of enemies on the map, and it's smooth sailing from there. There are a couple of stone spells on the map that can be a tiny bit scary, but aside from that, there aren't any real threats here. This chapter is basically just an EXP gold mine, and I absolutely screwed it up big time. For some stupid reason, instead of charging the top left side where most of the EXP is on the way, I decided to go to the bottom right and barely get any EXP this chapter. I let Speedy take the middle and Jay take the top left, and I was basically irrelevant for the entire chapter outside of that small area. There was the illusion of a struggle here, but it really was just JaeAIK charging ahead, taking the full EXP from most of the eggs, and then killing the boss. At one point, there was a chance that Arthur could die to a couple of spiders, but one of them missed, so he gets to live another day. RNG was quite kind in this scenario, though that was soon about to change. I also bought a bunch of killer weapons in the last chapter, but it seems like I got a cursed killer bow on Innis that never crits, and that was true for this chapter, so that was very fun. But yeah, chapter 18 isn't that exciting. There aren't any drops, the objective is easy, its story relevance is basically filler tier aside from one of the biggest meme post-map cutscenes in the entire series, and the map design is pretty poor. Anyways, we kinda just face rolled this chapter otherwise, despite a few instances of fake tension where everyone was literally gonna be fine. Okay, time for chapter 19. Now, I know this chapter can sometimes be a struggle. It's a Fog of War defend chapter, and unlike FE7, at least the defend target starts right next to you, and you don't need to worry about other green units dying to fulfill both the primary and secondary objectives. In addition to that, killing the boss here ends the chapter, so it is very easily a chapter that you can 1 or 2 turn if you want a warp skip. That is, if you're playing alone, or playing an actual true co-op run. In our scenario, you've got 3 people trying to screw each other over while also doing the best we can, so that's definitely not going to happen. Also, the normal way to play this chapter is to just defend a bunch of the choke points. If I were to look at this from a general perspective, there are basically 3 choke points that people usually take care of. The first is the hallway at the top where heroes, warriors, and snipers spawn. The second is the small choke point on the left side of the central room where stragglers of some of the reinforcements at the bottom usually spawn. And the last one is the 3-space staircase at the bottom of the central room where a lot of the main enemies will rush through. For some of the more ambitious players though, the choke point that's 2 tiles wide near the southern part of the map is the way to go, but the enemies will be a lot more grouped up, and you'd basically need to be ready with your strongest units while also praying to the RNG gods that you don't get hit. Prior to the map starting, I did kind of think about what I wanted to do. The most important thing to do on this map is to level up Ephraim. This map is chock full of promoted units, and it's basically an EXP paradise for units that are under level 10 to really get up to speed and start taking off for the final chapter. The issue is, these units now have silver weapons and higher tier magic tomes, and there are even a few brave weapons on this map. Duasol has also been far less useful than I remember him being, and Ephraim has just outstripped him in every way possible. He's honestly probably on the same tier as Speedy's Dozla.
What the fuck?
Oh, hey, no way. I had to beat it twice.
Who has been really good, don't get me wrong, but Duasol doesn't have the crit bonus to finish things off, and Dozla has been getting pretty good level ups with his speed stat. So anyways, to keep things simple, the left side choke point of the main room will be a good one to target. There are a lot of enemies that come down from the top, and I should get a few stragglers from the bottom side of the map. In addition to that, I have Innis and Tethys as 2 range backup options to take out some of the more problematic enemies, and she can also just dance Ephraim to get another round to kill something. So anyways, the chapter starts and we bring what's left of our best and only units. Immediately we have a pretty glaring issue, and that's that we simply don't have enough units to guard the top part of the map, so we need to retreat down to the middle room and hold things off there. I figured I'd hold the left choke point with Ephraim like I said earlier, since it'll be easier to hold a 1-tile point all by myself, and I leave the south side to Jay and Speedy. Naturally, greedy Speedy has to resurface, and he runs off with half his units to the right side to loot the chests, and he probably thinks this chapter is a wrap if he just rushes JaeAIK headfirst into a swarm of enemies with a hand axe. Now, I think I've mentioned this in the last video, or maybe it was on stream, but I'll restate it again here. I think 1-2 range weapons are fantastic. They really are. But in a scenario like this, where there are many waves of enemies that can all kill you via death by 1,000 cuts, sometimes you just need to avoid putting yourself in these scenarios where you're killing things and allowing more enemies to come through. It is Fog of War, and I appreciate it's not always easy to see everything, but it's never a good idea to front run, especially with all sabotages on board and someone as untrustworthy as me competing with you. In our situation, we just don't really have that many strong units that can really hold a bunch of points. JaeAIK is our best unit, with Ephraim as a close second. Myrrh is up there as well, but she doesn't exactly have very many uses of the Dragonstone, which makes her susceptible to getting locked out of the game entirely if that gets used up. Dozla and Duisul are both solid picks to hold certain points, but they're not super tanky and we don't double stuff, so they're pretty liable to getting killed if some of the faster enemies with silver weapons get a hold of them. So we end up with JaeAIK in the bottom middle area holding off almost every enemy that comes through there, with my Ephraim squad chilling in the top left. Eventually, JaeAIK starts to get overwhelmed by the sheer amount of units and has to slowly retreat. This isn't good because a bunch of those enemies will now move up to attack Ephraim. Not only is he more frail than JaeAIK, but he's also a game over condition if he dies, and we really don't want that, even as a collective team. But at this point, I'm doing relatively okay. However, one of my units has been terribly cursed, and this is where the curse of Innis begins to manifest itself. With a killer bow, Innis has about a 40% crit rate, which is fairly high. The problem is, he just hasn't been critting enough, if at all, which is leading to enemies staying alive after rounds of combat and not being able to take down as many as I wanted to in a single turn. All of these factors eventually ended up in me having to play a bit hyper-aggressive and go on the offensive with Ephraim, who has 33 HP, and leaving Innis exposed in the Fog of War to whatever enemies are going to come his way. And so I did that, and I paid the price. With all these enemies at the top, I had to get rid of one of the Mage Knights that was a bit far out with Ephraim. This meant that for me to get back into my choke point area, I'd need to dance him and also get Tethys out of there. So I did that, and then here I had a choice. I could either rescue Innis and keep Tethys rescued this turn, or I can trust in him, let him stay in his exposed area, and take drop Tethys to have her available to dance next turn. So I made the choice to go with a long-term benefit and keep Tethys out. Just like that, a pair of warriors with silver axes popped out of the fog, which is a nightmare for Ephraim if they hit. Ephraim doesn't one-round them with the javelin, but it's as if the curse of Innis takes hold and he starts critting left and right to open up more spaces to be attacked from. Luckily, the first one missed, and then the second one missed, and Ephraim didn't crit, which let him be a bit safer this turn. Now, it was Innis' turn. The first sniper came out of the fog and landed the silver bow hit. Now, notice here, if the curse of Innis persists, and he doesn't crit, we're pretty safe here as he won't be in range of anything else. But I think you guys already know how this is going to go. He immediately crit on the first shot, opening himself up to getting killed by anything that's in ranged, and as if right on cue, a ranger comes up from below and shoots him right in between the eyes. Innis has fallen.
Oh
Mecha's
no,
on my
please
shit
no.
list.
Oh.
He did it when it was bad.
No.
Is there another one? That's so unfucking lucky.
Bro, Link left the
He
call.
crit when it was.
He left the call.
I actually didn't leave the call. My internet screwed up there.
It cut out. Okay.
It cut out.
Oh, that's so unlucky, dude. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
He
dude.
actually threw. He actually threw.
Oh.
And is throwing so hard.
Now, this is a bit of a blow to me personally, because not only is the score now that much closer, with a sabotage from Speedy really screwing things up, but also because my units are all in prime position for a sabotage. Literally, all it would take for him is to rescue Tethys with Cyrene and fly her into enemy range, and I'm taking a -60 quicker than you can say weapon triangle. That wouldn't cause a direct game over, but it would flip the competition on its head, and I have no idea how I'd get out of that. I'd be effectively way too far behind to catch up, and almost all of my roster is gone at that point, even if I did sabotage him back. But somehow, Speedy didn't sabotage. And maybe he is going to keep his word after all. But that might not even matter, because the turn after this, I made the biggest misplay in the series thus far from my end. I decided to be overly aggressive with Ephraim and attack twice, without healing him. At this point, I knew full well that there were a ton of units waiting in the fog. But there were also 2 units with silver axes knocking right on Ephraim's door, and they hit really hard. Even if I did heal, 2 hits by those would put me in kill range from any other unit, and I just couldn't risk that. So I decided to go for it, and luckily I was rewarded in that I didn't get hit by the Great Knight. But it was at this moment that I realized I messed up. Ephraim was now even more exposed than he normally is, and an onslaught of enemies was coming with nowhere for me to go. Add to that, if I attempted to rescue Ephraim and move him out in any way, it would absolutely leave Tethys exposed, and I couldn't risk that. Or could I? After looking back at the footage, this Tethys is pretty fast, and she does have enough bulk to take a hit. I think the play here would have been to absolutely allow a ranged unit to come in and block off the other enemies, while taking a chip shot at Tethys to let me seal that area and be completely safe. I know the guys give me a hard time when I say you'll be fine when they leave a more squishy unit exposed, but sometimes it's the right play to distract an enemy who might not kill your best unit, but you can get them away for a round of combat to keep them a little bit more safe. But I had already made that mistake, so I end my turn, and I pray. Wave after wave, enemy after enemy, and somehow, some way, Ephraim manages to dodge a bunch of attacks that would have all eventually culminated in him dying. He stays alive by the skin of his teeth, and with each enemy that attacks him, the pitch black hole in my chest where my heart used to be aches with a mild pain that seems familiar, but all too distant at this point. Anyways, with just the right amount of RNG and enemy AI movement, Ephraim clutches it out and survives this turn with 11 HP. But what happened next turn is even more mind-boggling. One would think that after seeing the absolute massacre that Ephraim just held off, someone would think to not be as aggressive. But Jay thinks it's a good idea to go in and kill a paladin with Erica, keeping in mind that not only is Erica a lose condition, but she also dies in like 2 hits. Anyway, she goes in for it and gets hit back by the paladin, and now Jay and Speedy are forced to move more forward to guard her. And as if that wasn't bad enough, Arthur has to heal her to make sure she's safe from all the ranged enemies in the shadows. So now we're just casually sitting there with JaeAIK, who has 29 HP. I didn't like this one bit, even if it was in my best interest to have him die. It's almost like Jay sabotaged Speedy indirectly to get him to protect Erica and put JaeAIK in range of being killed. So now it's his turn to try and survive a billion enemies attacking him. In addition to that, since I did pull Ephraim back this turn as well, more enemies would be routing themselves back towards the bottom area too, so it's even more of a risk. JaeAIK's a big boy though, and he does a good job initially of dodging a few big hits, but eventually a paladin hits him and sets up for a finishing blow to fire.
Defense, boom, boom, boom. Defense, boom, boom, boom. Okay, damn. Does the boss not move? I don't think so.
No, he doesn't move.
Oh, thank you. Yes! This is my guy, dude. I think I'm gonna change my profile picture to JaeAIK. Yo, man, that could have been so bad. How many are here? This is crazy. Please, no more. Please. I wish I got defense. The suspense is killing me. Oh my god. It's over. Oh no.
I'm sorry, I moved Erica
I did that to protect Erica. Just know that. I did it to protect Erica. It's okay.
I guess even if I wanted to, I couldn't have engineered it better myself, but this does not bode well for us clearing the chapter, and if we failed this, we'd have to restart the chapter, but without JaeAIK and without Innis, and I think that would just be torture at this point. So now I'm in full panic mode, and with a few turns left, all I can think about is to grab Mansell and run. There's a tunnel with a secret shop on the right side, so I suggest we go and hold that off. Everyone makes a mad dash for it, except Speedy, because his units are trying to save Renak from his greed in the previous start of the chapter, and now he's in danger. But eventually, we're able to get into that tunnel, and we're able to survive the chapter without any more casualties, but we did take quite a few heavy losses this time around. And so, As a trio, we collectively drag our limping bodies one more time and try to get to the final chapter. It's time for Chapter 20. I'm gonna keep Chapter 20 brief because outside of a few very minor occurrences, this was a pretty boring chapter of us just turtling through it. I rescue dropped Ephraim to go down and through the bottom area and up the left to the boss, and he did well holding his own, but not much can be said about the other group. At one point, they got mobbed by a group of centaurs, and this is probably the first time I've seen one crit in this game.
Yeah.
Ephraim's like, you wanna see a magic trick?
Oh, went for dose.
You see, I took it
Oh,
for you.
interesting.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Who is this guy?
Dude, what? Oh.
So now we're in a bit of trouble, or well, Speedy is, and as funny as I think it would have been to sabotage him, at this point I just wanted to maintain the status quo and get to the last chapter. So Dozla stays alive with 1 HP remaining, and somehow we manage to get out of that pinch, but not without tragedy striking one more time. Noel was exposed, and while he should be able to take a hit, he almost has no luck in this game. And as if right on cue... Oh, come on!
Way! No way!
No way, bro.
What the fuck are these centaurs?
What is
dude?
going on?
I was like, oh, we're safe. What?
I'm so sick of these centaurs, dude.
What? Hey, dude, the MVP of this map is none of us. It's that centaur right there. What?
Another centaur lands yet another crit, and Noel is down and out of the game. This was just terribly unlucky, and I have nothing else to say but that. The rest of the map was an Ephraim sweep as everyone else slowly survived and made their way over to the end of the map to seize the throne, and with that, we end week 8. This week had some of our highest profile losses yet, but here we are, heading to the finale. But that's a story for another video. I'll see you all in the last video of the series very soon. Peace.
I have made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.